Hello, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Noor and today we are talking about assigning work. So we've been working our way through a series of videos called as Instilling Independence in Learning. In this series, we are talking about all the things that we can do as parents to make our children more independent in their learning so that they can own their work and they can be more self-reliant and it hopefully builds their self-confidence and it's all good for them, and at the same time it's good for us. So in the earlier videos, if you have not seen them, I would highly recommend you go back and see them, because in those videos I have like specific ideas for younger ages, like early childhood, early elementary, those kind of ages. And now we are shifting gears and talking about like the more slightly higher level of work. We're talking about the more serious kind of schoolwork or chores and things like that, which we can assign to a slightly older child. Now, you are the best judge of how you want to assign work and what kind of work you want to assign for what ages. But I will give you a framework in this video, and in the next video I will share the actual tips and tricks that have worked for us. Now, when you assign work, you want to keep these 5 points in mind. So I have put it like a question. So ask yourself these 5 questions and see if you have followed, if you have done something about all of these questions. If you have, it would probably probably increase the chances of you successfully, your child successfully completing the work. The first question to ask yourself is, have I set age-appropriate expectations? So you are expecting something when you assign work, right? So the question to ask yourself is this age appropriate for my child? Is he or she ready for this kind of work? So for a very young child, it may be just water the plants. For a slightly older child, it would be go and research about the moon. It's totally dependent on their age, and you want to keep the age factor in mind. So the first question to ask is, have I set age appropriate expectations? The next question to ask yourself would be, have I communicated with absolute clarity as to what I'm expecting? So many a times I've noticed that when I'm asking my children to do something, and if I'm not very clear with what I want, or let's say I'm asking them to do something in the passing, or I'm not very clear, I'm not making proper eye contact, or those type of things. So it's not clear to them what I really expect from them. So they are not able to do it, in that case, and I only have myself to blame. So I would say that communicating that with absolute clarity should be a priority. Now, when it comes to something that you want to do periodically, and something that's expected of them all the time, then you want to use tools and tips and tricks available, like like checklists, charts. You can use some specific drawers where their assigned work is kept, or some sort of a mechanism for them to know what is expected of them. So these tips and tricks and techniques, I will be sharing all of these, what I have used in my home, in the next video. I will be taking you through how we set the schedule, how I have taught them to go through their schedule work for the day, how I sometimes assign them responsibility and I can just walk away, and those type of things, like what other tools I'm using. So all of that will be in the next video. So let's go back. We are talking about the 5 questions we need to ask ourselves, or 5 points that we want to keep in mind as we assign work. The number 1 was setting age-appropriate expectations. Number 2 is communicating those expectations with absolute clarity. So now the third point is consistency. So children benefit from having a rhythm to their day, or having some clarity what they are expected to do. It should be somewhat predictable. So if you're consistent with your expectations, It will help them develop good habits, whether it's your personal habits, chores, and chores is something I struggle with, but that's a different discussion. But your habits towards your learning and your family values, whatever it is, if you are going to be consistent, that is going to take care of a lot of problems, prevent a lot of problems, basically. I will be having more examples of this, how I have combined certain things into routines in our home, so that there's a consistency, and it's very clear, it's not something ambiguous, those type of things. So basically, you want to be consistent. You want to be consistent with your expectations instead of making it a once in a blue moon type of a thing. No matter what it is, whether it's about your habits, or your chores, or learning, same rules apply. It's something that you do as a parent, and I'm pretty sure everybody does it, whether you homeschool or not. We all have certain expectations from our children, which is consistently expected of them, and you can do the same thing with your learning related stuff, like your education. The fourth point, are you following through? Now this is kind of similar to the previous point where I said, are you consistent? Now what's the difference then? Are you following through means that if they falter, if they don't do something that you have assigned for every day, then are you going to follow through, or do you let them slack, basically? So let's say you expect your child to do 1 page of math on their own every day, and if they don't do it, there is no if they know that mom is not even paying attention whether I do it or not, then they will start to slack. So you want to have that oversight, and you want them to know that I am going to follow through. There is going to be, you will be accounted for it. You have to be accountable for it. So following through is the fourth point, which is basically letting them know that if you are not going to do your work, then I am here to watch it, and I will have whatever is your consequence, or whatever is your natural consequence, or whatever techniques you're using as a parent. You basically want them to know that I am going to follow through, and I will come and question you if you don't do something. Basically, that's what it means. Now the fifth point, have you broken down your task into small, easy, simple chunks? So now let's say you want to teach them how to do their laundry, okay, and that's the work you have assigned them. So just assigning the work is not enough. You want to really break it down into small chunks that they are easily able to do, and until they reach the point where they are ready to take on this kind of a responsibility, you want to be there with them. And this is true with everything, like whether it's the chores, it's the personal work, it's the school work. You want to break it down for them as much as you can. Like step A, step B, step C, there's no limit to it. The simpler you make it, the more easier you make it for them, the more the chances that they will follow through. Okay, so 5 things to keep in mind. Again, are you setting age appropriate expectations? Are you communicating with absolute clarity? Number 3, are you consistent with your expectations? Number 4, are you following through with them? When they don't finish something, do you follow through? Do you go and question them? Are you paying attention to that? Number 5, have you broken it down to small, simple, doable steps? If it's a big task, or even if it's a simple task, you want to break it down for them, basically. So these are the 5 points to keep in mind when you assign any kind of work, and this should increase the chances of having success with your child getting in the habit of doing things. Now, what are the benefits of this kind of assigning of work? What do we achieve by doing this? Number 1, it teaches them responsibility. It teaches them accountability. So that's the number 1 thing. You want to teach them to be responsible and accountable. So you want to do something like this. Second thing, it does make them feel respected or honored. They can see that, you know, they can add value to those around them. They can be in charge. You know, they feel like they're being treated like an adult. So they really like that. They feel empowered from such an experience. They like feeling independent and, you know, being able to do things on their own. There are so many times when, you know, I have to, usually when I assign them work, I'm right there with them. But there have been many occasions where I have assigned them work, I have written down the schedule for them, and I have gone for my book club meeting, or, you know, when we have our co-op meetings, or, you know, any random things that I go out of the house for. And when I come back and they have finished their work, they are just beaming with joy. I mean, they do that pretty much every day, but when I'm not there and they do it very easily, they feel that, oh yeah, we don't really need anybody to tell us what to do. You know, like, we can finish our work, nobody has to supervise us, and we are responsible and we'll finish our work. So that's a good thing. Another benefit is that it builds that grit in them, you know, that ability to work hard and stay on task. I had seen a TED talk on this topic, like, you know, how the most important thing that the children need to have to be successful is grit. You know, this habit of just staying on task and doing it, just not giving up, just being that dedicated, determined about finishing their work. So, because, you know what, life is full of challenges, life is full of responsibilities, which are not always fun. Many a times we have to gather ourselves and do things because that's the right thing to do. So, you know, you want to teach that. If you have taken up something, you have to honor yourself and do your work. You know, that's part of your part of something that we do, right? Another benefit. So this is the benefit number 4. I have already covered 3 points. Okay, this is the 4th one. It builds that will. Now, the topic of will is so interesting. Like, I think we use the word will in the wrong way. When we say somebody's strong-willed, we mean that they're stubborn or something, you know, but that's not really the meaning of the word will. Will basically means to choose something, right? And being able to choose what you want to do and then following through. That's what really trains the will of a person. So willingly getting up and doing something because you made the choice to do it is what is going to help them build that will to do something. And this is a great way to teach them that you know, something has been, you know, they are responsible for doing something, and when they get up and do it and they choose and they do it without anybody telling them, you know, without anybody you know, dragging them through it, where they are in charge and they're doing it, they are basically training their will, and it's really good for them. This is what essentially separates human beings from animals, right? Like, we have the power of choice. We can choose to do something. You know, that's something that we want to teach our children. Now, what are some of the practical ideas with assigning work? So I'm going to share just a few examples of things you can assign them to do. Now, with my situation, with my eldest being 9 years old and the younger one being 6 years old, obviously I set age appropriate expectations from them, and some of these examples are from my personal situation, but obviously this is going to be different for different families, different children, because of their age and the circumstances, and also how long you've been doing something like this. So it's going to vary, but you are the best judge of what is going to work for your child. Start from something simple and gradually build it up instead of trying to do too much. But here are some examples. One of the ways you can teach them, you know, one of the things you can do to assign work is sibling teaching. Sibling teaching is a great way to review something. So if I'm asking my eldest to do the reading lesson with the younger one, I know that it's good for him because it's going to review some of the spelling rules, because reading and spelling are kind of like similar. Spelling, you apply the same rules as you apply for reading. So the phonics is pretty much, you know, it's the same thing. The sounds again. So when you are assigning any kind of sibling teaching, you are actually helping them review what they have already learned, or something that is something that's going to benefit them. And they say that teaching is the best way of learning. So when you learn something and then you teach somebody else, that's the best way for it to go in the deeper part of your brain. So you're helping them in a way if you assign them to do something with a younger sibling. It is also good for their bonding, and they can make their own memories. They take pride in the fact that they help their younger sibling learn something. It's all good. Secondly, narration is a form of retelling is a form of review, and especially in the Charlotte Mason method of education, which I really like. So when I ask my firstborn to do something with the second one, then I am making him retell something, right? Like I ask him sometimes to read something and explain it to the younger one. Why don't you narrate it to the younger one and make him understand? Maybe he's not going to get it. Like, why don't you explain it to him? So it's all by intention, and it's good for them. Now, another thing is, assigning them household stuff, like household tasks. This is, again, an area where I struggle the most, and this is something that I'm really trying hard this year to overcome. But basically, when you assign them chores or household responsibilities, you're training them that you have a family, you care for your family, you contribute in the family, and you are somebody who helps everybody around them, and is a contributor basically. So it's good for them. I was really on top of this until last year, and I don't know, this year I have really slacked. So that's the thing, that point about consistency is so true. Even if you have done something in the past, but if you start slacking off, they will unlearn. So you want to be consistent. Another thing, schedule a book to be read. Now, one of the things you can do, assign them to do, is have an afternoon reading time where you assign them some books to read on their own and come back and narrate to you. So basically, you schedule, you set up the week schedule and you assign them a book to be read independently, and then they can come back and narrate to you. So scheduling a book to be read is a great idea, and you want them to learn to sit still with a book. You want them to absorb the grammar and the spelling through the reading. Like Charlotte Mason method actually doesn't really go into grammar and spelling for a long time, because she believed that when a child is used to reading good literature, their attention is drawn to the grammar and the spelling anyways. So they do learn they pick up a lot of stuff when they're reading books. They build their vocabulary, they do the grammar, they do the spelling, and those type of things. Now, as they grow older, you can even start assigning them something like research on a subject. So you can pick a subject and assign them to go and research about it. Now, obviously, this depends on the age of the student, and you can make it easier by giving them some more guidance. Probably, if it's a very young child, you wouldn't want to do it. But if it's a slightly older child, like, my sons do it, and I usually assign them both to work together for this, and I give them a book because they're kind of on the younger side. So I tell them specific books that they can look at. So it's going to be a couple of encyclopedias or other books, and it's going to be a little bit more focused on what we are learning at that moment. So right now they have been researching about the solar system, and I basically tell them what I want them to research about. So I'll probably tell them, can you guys go and research something about the planet Mercury and come back and tell me what you find out? And they happily go, and they read from the book, and they really enjoy telling me what they did, and those type of things. So you can definitely make it as difficult or as easy as you want. If you want to, if it's a child which is even younger than my eldest, like let's say 7, 8, you could even give them like a chapter and make it like more like a quiz. And I do that sometimes. So you can ask them to just focus on these 2 pages, and these are my questions. Go and find out the answers to these questions from this book. So then it's more of it's guided. It's not like like wide open. So they know what you're specifically looking for. But basically you can make it as easy or as difficult as you need to, based on the child's age and their skill level. So this was it about, this was all I had to cover today. But in my next video, I'm going to cover all the tips and tricks and techniques I have used to do this in reality. Like, how do you actually do it? So in that video, I'm going to talk about importance of routines, how routines help. I will be talking about something called as work boxes and how they can help you set clear expectations, how you can schedule the books or make a schedule for the day, and how the children can go through the activities by themselves and the lessons by themselves, basically all of that. So all of that is going to come in the next video, which is going to be a long video. And I really hope that this series is benefiting you, and just wait for the last video and then we should be able to conclude. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.